This video was brought to you by Yamaha Proven Off-Road ATVs and side-by-side vehicles.
Hey ArcheryTalk, this is Lucas, and today I'm going to offer you my final head-to-head comparison between the Garmin Xero A1i and the Burris Oracle Rangefinding bow sights. When it comes to this new rangefinding technology, these are the two sights that are at the top of the heap. They've got all the features, they've got everything you're looking for in that rangefinding technology. And I'm going to break this kind of comparison down into a variety of different categories. And I suppose the first one we should look at is price, because that is going to be the biggest obstacle for many of us who are shopping for these kind of sites. They're just expensive. It's new technology, and at this point you're going to have to pay for it if you're going to have it. The Xero A1i came in with an MSRP of $1,000 American, while the Oracle is $800. Now that $200 discrepancy is pretty significant. However, everywhere we've looked, all the major retailers have dropped the price of the Xero down to $800, so it's got an identical price point as the Oracle. Another category to consider is the weight. A lot of bow hunters, especially Western bow hunters who have to do a lot of walking or put on miles and miles every day, are very interested in shaving as many ounces as they can from their bow and their gear. These sites do the opposite, quite frankly. They weigh a bunch. The Burris Oracle I weighed in at 1.1 pounds. That is a lot of weight you're going to carry. And the Garmin came in at 0.9 pounds, also a lot of weight. But that's 3+ ounces of difference here in the Garmin's favor. So I'm going to give the Xero the distinct advantage in this category. Another category to consider is setup. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on how to set up these sites. I've done that in prior videos. You can go check out our channel, our prior reviews of the Oracle and of the Garmin. The setup for both of them at first is complicated. It seems foreign, and it is if you've never set up one of these sites before. Once you learn how to do it, it's actually pretty easy, and quite frankly probably faster than setting up a 5-pin site. I would say once you know how to do them both, I would give the slight advantage here to the Burris. It's a bit of a simpler interface, and I would say it's the slightly easier of the two to set up, so I'll give points to the Burris in that category. The next category for me is fit and finish. And when you're talking about $800 bow sights, you want fit and finish to be great, because that's really what you're paying for here. And if I have to pick a winner here, I'm going to go with the Garmin. I just think it's a little bit more refined. And that's not a slam on the Burris. The Burris is a great company. They've been in the firearm industry for a long time, making high-end optics. I just think in this case, I'm going to give the level of refinement advantage to the Garmin just a little bit. However, the Burris loses some points here. I've broken both the elevation and windage knobs for the toolless adjustment on here. I can still make the adjustments if I use a pair of pliers. It's just no longer toolless. And I suspect also if I asked Burris, they would just send over those knobs. They're just plastic components. They wouldn't cost very much to replace. Hopefully in future models, maybe they'll just beef up the plastic just a little bit. The Garmin also loses some points here occasionally for freezing up. Now that really doesn't have much to do with the fit and finish. It's more on the functionality. But a couple of times I've had the Garmin just stop working. It just takes resetting the site, which takes about 30 seconds or a minute to do, but another thing to consider. Another category I'm adding on here is the features. And I guess I'll say flat out early on that both of these bows have the exact same features that you really want them to have. They both have that range-finding technology, and it works excellently on both of them. They both have multiple arrow profiles. The Burris has 2 different arrow profiles, and the Garmin has 10. Which might even be a little too much. I don't know how many profiles you need, but the fact is, with both of these things, you can set up arrows with a 100 grain head, and arrows with a 125 grain head for a slightly heavier or larger animal if you're hunting that. Whatever you want to do, you've got multiple arrow profiles, and there's not really any other sites that give you that option. Very cool. The Garmin is going to win this category because it just has more features to offer. The Garmin has a practice mode, for instance, which tells you the number of shots you've had. The Garmin will tell you if you're canting the bow. It's got a little indicator that if you're canting too much left or right, it'll indicate that. The Garmin will also tell you if the bow is not how much vibration the bow has, but how long the vibration lasts. I wouldn't call that critical information, but it's a cool thing to have. And another cool feature with the Garmin is if you have a Garmin watch, it will the very last range you make, it will mark if your watch is synced with your bow sight, so that if you have to back out after shooting a deer, just to give it some time, you can go back and you know exactly where the ranging happens. So you can start from square one where hopefully the arrow landed and start your tracking process from there. Pretty cool. Another category for us to look at is the sight picture. And that's an important one for me. And in fact, the Garmin Xero has, I would say, the best sight picture of any bow sight I've ever touched in my life, because there is absolutely zero clutter. there's just a single solitary LED light for which acts as your pin. And obviously it'll move around depending on what the distance you're at. But it is a perfectly clear sight picture, and I love it. But, and it's a big but in this case, there's no fail-safe on the Garmin. So if the unthinkable happens and the sight breaks, doesn't work, battery's gone, whatever have you, you're out of luck. You've got no marking in there. I've been using that sight for almost 2 years. I've never had such an issue. I don't expect to, but it's something to consider. Whereas the Burris, you've always got that 20-yard pin guaranteed in there. So if the unthinkable happens, you can shoot probably pretty safely out to about 30 yards without having to worry about it. The Burris sight picture is obviously not as clear as the Garmin, but it's a lot clearer than you'd get in a normal 3 or 5 pin sight, because there's just not those horizontal pins kind of blocking your way. It's just a single thin tree running down the middle, and that's really, it's not something I mind all that much. Another category I want to talk about is pin brightness. Both of these have adjustable brightness levels on the pins, although the Garmin, they're not really pins, they're just lights. And I find that I'm going to give the advantage here to the Burris because it feels to have a lot more brightness range for me. When I shot the Garmin last year, it was great almost all of the time. I never had any trouble except on one particularly bright early morning. It was a lot of snow cover, and so the sun was bouncing hard off that snow on a clear bluebird sky day. And it was really washing out my pin, and I had a little bit of trouble kind of finding the pin even when it was maxed out all the way. I could see it, it just wasn't exactly what I'd like, whereas the Burris can get really bright, and you can bring it down a lot as well. I'm just going to give the Burris the slight advantage there. Plus, again, even if you're in that brightness and you got a 20-yard shot, the main pin you're going to see anytime you're here anyway. Another category worth considering here, and it's a big one, is how it works. If you're spending $800 on a bow sight and it's clunky to operate, it's not much worth in having that sight. The good news is that both of these sights work fantastically well. I've shot these both thousands of times, and I would say the whole shot process takes maybe a second longer than it would on a regular sight where you're ranging ahead of time. So it's no time at all. You get to draw, you hit that button, and both of them have very similar buttons. They work exactly the same way. And you can just you range and you go. I guess the last category we'll kind of call miscellaneous, because I'll just throw a couple of odds and ends in here. One thing is that both of these sights kind of offer you a multi-pin configuration if you want it. As far as the Garmin goes, you just tap the button once and you can preset your pins to whatever distance you like. It could be 20, 30, 40, 50, or it could be 25, 38, whatever they're going to be. And they'll just show up as a multitude of dots, however many you want. And the Burris, you hold it for 3 seconds and it'll give you the pin array, or if you block the rangefinder with your hand or something like that, and then it'll automatically come up just so you're guaranteed to have it, just in case you. I think that was designed is if you're ranging on something and maybe a leaf is in the way, it's only a couple yards away, it's not going to range the leaf for you. It'll just give you the array of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 yard pins that'll come up. So again, equal points to both of those. They both work very well, and it's just nice to have that. I usually keep mine on, quite frankly, in the multi-pin facet if I'm just sitting there, just in case something comes up quickly and I just want to shoot. But otherwise, if I want to range, just a quick tap of the button and I can range again. One of those other miscellaneous things we'll talk about is just the general size and picture of the sight. So for me, the Garmin is quite a bit more compact, which I like a lot. The Burris is a little wider and a little bit bulkier. Again, they're both bulky. They're both bulkier than a regular sight, but the Garmin does the job a little bit sleeker, so I might give it a slight advantage over there. But really, that's personal preference, and I would call that category a wash as well. All right, with our little comparisons just about wrapped up, it's time for me to pick my winner. And if I'm spending my money on this, I think I'm going to go with the Garmin Xero A1i. I find that the general interface is a little bit clearer. It's got more features for me to choose from. I love that clear sight picture, and that's ultimately going to be the winner for me. However, and this is a big thing, if that fail-safe, if you needing to have that guaranteed pin just in case all else goes wrong is a big deal for you, and maybe it is, and maybe it should be, then I think that Burris Oracle is a really fine choice, and I would have no trouble shooting it myself. And sometimes I think that maybe is a bigger deal than I'm making it. But I love the clear sight picture so much, which I think is why I'm going to give that edge to the Garmin ultimately. ArcheryTalk, thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like, share, and subscribe. It really does help the channel an awful lot, and we'll see you again soon.